Patients and doctors are legitimate targets. Women, children, the sick, the wounded, and their caregivers are condemned to death. Stop these attacks.
Some say there's been a paradigm shift in the armed conflicts of today. In places like Syria, Yemen, Afghanistan, and South Sudan, the old rules of warfare have been abandoned, and tactics are now more indiscriminate, with the most vulnerable being targeted, along with those caring for them. Since the Saudi-led coalition began bombing Houthi forces in Yemen last year, Doctors Without Borders, or MSF, has been treating the wounded on both sides of the war. On August 15th, 19 members of staff were killed in an aerial bombing. MSF has now decided it's become too dangerous to operate there and is pulling out its missions in the north. So is this only the beginning of rescue workers retreating from the front lines? A similar new normal has taken hold in Syria, where bombings by the regime against rebel forces have not only targeted hospitals, but the headquarters of rescue workers. For years, Syrian volunteers, known as the White Helmets, have been running towards the screams of civilians. Lately, they've been running for cover too.
We're experiencing a new style of attack, which we call a double attack. After an attack occurs, people gather, including rescuers, to try and help people. Then, after a few minutes, they strike again. Sometimes a place will come under siege, and hospitals and rescue teams will be specifically targeted, so that injured people are forced to use those chosen humanitarian corridors.
The evidence suggests a worrying trend. According to the International Committee of the Red Cross, there were more than 2,400 attacks on hospitals, patients, and health workers between 2012 and 2014. Last year, MSF recorded 94 attacks on hospitals in Syria alone. But here's what's worse. Those responsible for continuing to break international humanitarian law are getting away with it. The Syrian regime, for example, is defending its attack on the Al-Quds hospital last April because it was inside rebel territory and therefore counts as a target. The US, meanwhile, blames the attack on the MSF hospital in Kunduz on human error. A lack of accountability has horrified and frustrated aid workers. Last year, MSF publicly boycotted the World Humanitarian Summit, calling it a fig leaf of good intentions. The United Nations adopted a resolution last month demanding heightened protection for healthcare workers and facilities in conflict zones. But critics say there's no one to enforce the rules and see little hope of change without a greater political determination to end war altogether. Sandra Gathmann, The Newsmakers.